How high should we set our expectations for Michael Penix in his NFL debut?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, aka the Jolly Green Giant, aka Sirius Black, aka Mr. aka, and I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at falcons.com. RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. And I thank each and every one of you that goes strong with me as everydayers. That means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you have to do to become an everydayer, subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. So today's episode, I am once again joined by Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta to talk about this upcoming Week 16 matchup between the Falcons and Giants. You know, when Jarvis and I get together, we're going to talk trenches. We're going to talk about some X factors. But, you know, I don't know, Jarvis, if you heard the news, but a pretty big thing happened this weekend. The Falcons signed somebody to of course, the Falcons bench Kirk Cousins, and they will be starting Michael Penix. And, you know, there's a lot of excitement in the air in Atlanta. We know MBS will be buzzing on Sunday with people getting to see their first action.
Who they bench?
I don't know his name, Jarvis, because you haven't mentioned him in like 2 weeks on Locked On Falcons or Locked On Sports Atlanta. What is his name? Can you say it out loud?
Kirk.
Okay.
It was nephew. He got demoted to nephew. Cousins. Now he was nephew, and now that he's no longer starting the quarterback, I'll say his name now.
Okay. Well, glad to have you back, Jarvis. So we will be talking about Michael Penix and his expectations because we talked about this on the Atlanta Sports Party over at Locked On Sports Atlanta Thursday live show earlier this week, as well, of course, on Monday, as we often do. And of course, Locked On Sports Atlanta is the place to catch that postcast each and every weekend, Sunday, last week, Monday, immediately after the game to get our reactions to the game. But we talked about sort of expectations for Michael Penix, and sort of I expressed, I'm expecting the Falcons to ask him to manage the game, given it's his first action. I'm hoping to see that maybe we'll see some different looks with the play action, maybe a little bit more bootlegs and rollouts and those types of things to sort of better combine their sort of outside zone run scheme. But I feel like this is going to be more of a get your feet wet type of game before we're really asking you to have to do a little bit more heavy lifting, the following week against the Washington Commanders. And I had a Locked On Falcons insider ask me this week to sort of project the stat line for Michael Penix. And I'm not going to ask you to do the same, Jarvis, but I basically was like, they'll probably shoot to throw him, have him throw the ball like 25 times, right? Maybe he gets 150, 180 yards if he can hit a couple of those shot plays and whatnot. If he gets a touchdown, great. But, I think the real key is don't turn the ball over or whatnot. And so I'm asking you, Jarvis, am I tempering my expectations too much when it comes to Michael Penix? What are you expecting to see from this Falcons offense with Penix under center?
To be honest with you, man, for me, I feel like there are going to be some opportunities for big plays, right? Because we understand how Lamar Jackson was out there clowning on the Giants last week. I'm not saying Michael Penix is Lamar Jackson. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go that far. But I do feel like Penix has the right ability that this offense needs in order to be functional. And when this offense was fully functional and Kirk was making plays, and getting the ball out on time and not holding and patting the football and all that stuff, I feel like, this offense was capable of putting up 24, 25 points a game. And you saw that, in those moments before Kirk went on his little schneid or whatever. But I think that, with Michael Penix being the type of guy to get the ball out on time, being super accurate with the football, and specifically having one of the best deep ball throwing quarterbacks in this quarterback class this year, I feel like that's something that can have a potential where you may see maybe 220 with on 19, 20 attempts and maybe 15 to 16 completions. Like I feel like he can get there because Darnell Mooney is a guy that's just was absent last week, and given how the Raiders were trying to play the defense, he just wasn't able to get the ball, and that shouldn't have been the case given what type of things Patrick Graham was throwing at him as a defense coordinator for the Raiders. So I feel that there are going to be some holders or some breakers on this offense. Sure, yeah, the first NFL start, rookie quarterback, I get all that, but there are going to be plenty of opportunities for them to be able to take advantage of stuff that they haven't been able to do in this last month or so.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jarvis. I think there will be an opportunity. There will probably be, out of those 25 dropbacks that I'm projecting, there'll be probably 5 to 7 opportunities for the Falcons to hopefully get some of those big plays. With sort of Penix's arm strength, and to me, you mentioned sort of Darnell Mooney getting Blake. We know that throughout this season, that's been sort of the strongest sort of variable in Kirk Cousins' favor, where
he's a man beater.
And him and Darnell Mooney have, for the most part, made beautiful music together.
Sure.
And so to me, I think that's going to be what's interesting with Penix, just because he hasn't really had the opportunities this season to get those reps with the ones, and sort of what type of rapport is he going to have and the trust with Darnell Mooney, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts and whatnot. And so I think that's going to be interesting to see if he sort of veers towards one of those guys. We know the connection he had with Casey Washington. No offense to Casey Washington, who I think is still in the concussion protocol, but I don't want to see Casey Washington. I don't want to see Casey Washington out there, getting 8 targets or something like that in a game or whatever. But it'll be interesting to see, Kadero Hodge. Like Penix has probably got more practice reps with Kadero Hodge than he has with some of the starters. And so do they mix in more of Kadero Hodge as that fourth receiver? What about Ray McLeod, et cetera, all that sort of thing. So I think that connection with his receivers is going to do a lot over these next couple of games and starting on Sunday to sort of determine where this offense can go.
I'm with you, man. And I think I'm glad you mentioned Ray McLeod, because he and Michael Penix Jr., they work out together. They're from the same area, whatever. So those guys, they have some rapport. So it's something there. I'll never forget when we were on one of the Locked On Falcons pods early on in the season. He was like, man, I don't want to see Ray McLeod getting all these doggone targets. And I think that we may see some of that, because we understand the type of attention that Drake London is going to draw. And the beauty of this game with putting a new quarterback in there, they're like the Giants defense is probably scrambling at this point, because what tape do they have against a preseason game against the Dolphins? And we know how vanilla, white toast vanilla offensive coordinators are in the preseason. So they don't really give you anything. So I feel like Zach is coming into this game with a nice advantage, man. And I feel like with the familiarity he has with Ray McLeod, and obviously he'll figure it out. Drake is 6'3", 6'4", 215. That is a hell of a target to throw the football to. He has a wide catch radius. Sometimes it was tested with Kirk throwing it to him. So I think from that standpoint, I feel like it'd be fine. But I really feel like there is somewhat of an advantage coming into this game, being that, he hadn't played in a regular season football game. But, he hadn't played in a regular season football game. There are some offensive coordinators with I always joke about, like, my offensive coordinator from college. We used to always joke with him, talking about how he used to just come up with plays sitting on the toilet stool. I really feel like this is one of those toilet stool games where, man, you can throw some things at them that they haven't seen all year, and you haven't been capable of running, that can really be effective, because it hasn't been on. It's not on tape. How at this point in the year, we always talk about how offenses, the book is out. Like, there's nothing new you can really throw at somebody going into the last month of the season. That's not necessarily the case for the Falcons. So Zach Robinson has an advantage, and he has an advantage right now, and he needs to max that bad boy out.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so it'll be very interesting to see what sort of different things the Falcons do on Sunday. How
don't get cute though. We don't like cute stuff.
Okay.
all that reverse pass, jet sweep, just all that stuff. Don't get cute. Just concepts, man. Different concepts, different route combinations you can throw at them now because you got somebody who got a little bit more arm strength and can push that ball down the field a little bit more. That's all I'm talking about. You know, Zach listens to the show, so that's why I put that out there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see what Zach does. I think he's going to lean on his offensive line to sort of, deal some damage against this New York front that, the Falcons dodging another bullet, Jarvis. They don't have to deal with Dexter Lawrence this week, but they do have to deal with a certain Mr. Burns and a certain Mr. Thibodeau. We'll talk about that as well as whether or not this Falcons defensive line can control the line of scrimmage against a Giants offensive line that has not been performing great. And so we'll get into that trench talk that that me and Jarvis love to talk about as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. And if you love watching the game, you're going to love PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. And whether it's football, basketball, or your other favorite sports, PrizePicks is here to make your holidays bigger and brighter. And you can win now up to 1,000 times your money. On PrizePicks in this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas, offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks is going to make it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as quickly as 15 minutes. And it's so easy with PrizePicks because all you got to do is pick at least 2 players, and it's just you versus the stat projections, more or less. You just find 2 stat projections, guys, and they got thousands for NFL, basketball, college football, hockey, all of it is there. And you just pick 2 and you can win your money. All you got to do is download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even have to win, and you still get your money. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And guys, it is that time of year. The college football playoff is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever. And it's bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. And then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Jarvis and I love to talk trenches here on this podcast for this episode. That's where our hearts lie. That's the thing that has, usually been the Achilles heel for the Falcons, in the past. And it's interesting because, coming out of the bye week, it has not been as big a weakness. You've seen, especially on the defensive side of the ball, you saw this last week against the Raiders. The Falcons have done a much better job controlling the line of scrimmage, evidenced by 13 sacks in 3 games. That's the second most in the NFL. If only for Micah Parsons, Dallas has 1 more sack than the Falcons. We could sit here on this very podcast for the first time ever, Jarvis, and say the Falcons have the best pass rush in the NFL. If you just, eliminate 3 months of the season and just focus on just
you gotta be real specific, man.
Yeah, real specific. But Jarvis, we got to do what we got to do in order to get that positive spin. But speaking of dodging bullets, Micah Parsons and whatnot, Falcons get to dodge another bullet this week with Dexter Crosby. No Max Crosby last week. I mean Dexter Lawrence.
Yes.
And
I don't want to see that combination.
I don't want to see Dexter Lawrence. I'm glad we don't get to see because he would be absolutely annihilating the interior of this offensive line. But they get to dodge that bullet, but it's not like the Giants are without nothing, right? This is not a situation like we saw with the Raiders last week where, they had some players, but nobody to the Kayvon Thibodeau and, of course, as you refer to him, Jarvis, Mr. Burns, the man that has, owned the Atlanta Falcons the last couple of times he's faced them back in Carolina. So that's why I sit here and I go I don't think the Falcons can drop back and throw the ball for 30, 40 times in this game, given what we have seen Mr. Burns do when he can pin his ears back. But Jarvis, whether you want to talk about the O-line's ability to sort of establish the run and sort of handle that Giants front, or you want to talk more about this defensive line and what they've been doing, controlling the line of scrimmage, stopping the run, getting after the quarterback. Do you think the Falcons have what it takes to control the line of scrimmage in this matchup against the Giants, something that they've done consistently coming out of the bye?
I know there weren't a lot of things last week to be positive about coming out of that win against the Las Vegas Raiders. But the one positive thing that I can draw that I was very encouraged by, I saw Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry getting after it, man. And, leading up to that game, we talked about that. I wanted to see those guys putting paws on people and start moving some people around. And that's exactly what they did. And I think I need that again, especially when Dexter Laboratory won't be out. He won't be out there. We won't get a chance to see that. Woo, man! I really want to see that matchup. Not so. I think that that's one of the things that they should be able to take advantage of. When you have a guy like that not in the middle of your defensive line or defensive front, that makes a difference, man. Like when you can move people around. And we know what Caleb McGarry and Chris Lindstrom can do in a run game, because being able to establish the run changes a lot of things from a play calling standpoint, like to their favor, right? Because if you aren't able to run the football, that means you have to pass the ball. And if you have to pass the ball, that means you have Jake Matthews and Caleb McGarry one-on-one, because you can't chip all the time. Because you're going to be behind the sticks at some point, especially if you're not able to run the ball. So you're going to be looking at some second and long, third and longs, and you want to try to move the football and stay on the field and try to establish yourself. Like, you have to pass the football. And I think that if the Falcons are able to get that running game going, that's going to open up a lot of things. And you can, like, slow down Mr. Burns, based off of, the success of what you've been able to do. And what I always like to say is, when an offense has a two-way go, that is the worst thing in the world for a defensive lineman. He's like, man, I don't know if y'all gonna run or pass. Man, I can look at down and distance, like, oh, 1st and 10, okay, I might run a turnaround football. But if it's 2nd and 4, 3rd and 5, you're not gonna get there. There's not too many people who can get there if it's 3rd and 4, and somebody has a separation and they're able to get open or whatever. So I think that you can minimize guys like Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. I know a lot of people can be kind of wishy-washy with how they feel about him, but the man can rush the passer when he's locked in. So if they're able to get that run game going, I feel with Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry, specifically to that right side, like they did last week, man, this offense can get real fun at some point.
Yeah, I agree with you. And let's talk about the defensive line and the pass rush, right? We've seen this team unlock Caden Ellis these last couple of weeks and really see his game step up. Arnold Ebiketie stepped up. We even got a D'Angelo Malone sighting, Jarvis. He had 2 sacks last week. I mean,
man, wait, like, is the curse of Matt Ryan lifted? Is D'Angelo Malone lifting the curse of Matt Ryan by himself?
And for those of you that don't know what Jarvis is talking about, D'Angelo Malone was selected with the draft pick that the Falcons got in the Matt Ryan trade 2 years ago. So, yeah.
Two, not one, two, dos. And this is his former teammate, the homie. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, I gotta put you down, dog. I'm sorry. Your people can't block. So, but yeah, man, in all seriousness though, I think, like, when you have guys like that contributing, because coming into the season, I remember vividly when Jimmy Lake said D'Angelo Malone ain't playing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, basically, and I'm putting it in a nice way. I remember the exact quote. But to now, where he's coming in on 3rd down, specifically being a pass rusher, man, I love that, man, because D'Angelo Malone from around the way, from Decatur, man, like, went to Cedar Grove. A couple of my homeboys coached him, when he was at Cedar Grove, the east side, the powerhouse of the east side, as they like to refer to it as. I think so. For me to see him, a guy like that, and I got a chance to meet his mom too when he was his rookie year. Just a beautiful family, so nice. But yeah, to see a guy like that to kind of starting to come into his own, earn some playing time, not be given anything, cut his teeth on special teams and get out there and just getting after it. I feel like this is one of those games where that offensive line is subpar, So you can have multiple guys getting after you. You don't have to depend on one person to get home. And that's the beauty of building a defense, right? Like the adjustments that have been made. And I'm just excited about the defense. I don't know if you can tell. I get excited looking at this defense evolve like it has in these past few weeks, man. And I think that they have another opportunity to do it again against the offensive line that just hasn't been good. Like,
Yeah,
they got better, but they haven't been good.
Yeah. they went from a 0 out of 10 last year,
right? Or I
to
can
like
say that.
a 2 out of 10 this year, and it's like it's like they've improved. They've improved, but it's still a problem. So I'm looking forward to see sort of who steps up. We've seen great moments from Rukaroro, Zach Harrison, Grady Jarrett still doing his thing. We've even seen David Onyemata stepping up, Eddie Goldman stepping up. So it has been a group effort. Even your boy Matthew Judon has gotten a couple of sacks these last couple of weeks. So it feels like that unit is sort of coming into his own these last couple of weeks, and I hope they continue that against this Giants team. But talking about the defense, talking about the aggressiveness of this defense, we'll talk one aspect that I think they can continue to be aggressive and have some of the success that they've been having in recent weeks is with AJ Terrell sort of shadowing Malik Neighbors and seeing that and how that matchup goes. But that will get us into a conversation about potential X factors, and we'll pick Jarvis's brain on that thought on AJ versus Malik, as well as some other players that could be X factors in this matchup. And we'll get into all of that, guys, as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So time is a precious commodity, and sometimes I find myself disappointed with how much time I feel like I'm wasting scrolling mindlessly on my phone. And I often think, man, this time could be better spent and used more wisely to looking for ways to improve myself. And thankfully, our sponsor, Hillsdale College, has an offer of more than 40 free. That's right, free online courses on history, politics, economics, philosophy, chemistry, and mathematics, all subjects that I could certainly use some improvement in. And their courses are all self-paced, so you can start whenever you want, however you want. So if you want to go deeper with the readings, the quizzes, the discussions, or just sit back and enjoy the lectures, it is there for you. All you got to do is go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. Again, that's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/locked on. So let's talk X factors, and Jarvis, I'll give you the floor to talk about a player, a unit, a coach, whatever you want to talk about that you think will have a significant impact on this game. But for me, I want to highlight AJ Terrell. I think AJ's played much better in these last couple of weeks. And I think that's part of the Falcons' aggressiveness on defense. And I think one way that they can, continue to show that aggressiveness on defense is by asking AJ Terrell to shadow Malik Neighbors in this upcoming Giants matchup. And we've talked a lot over the years about, certain types of matchups is what AJ Terrell does well, and certain types of matchups are not necessarily his cup of tea. The big physical wide receivers, not necessarily. The Mike Evanses of the world, the DK Metcalfs of the world, those guys are the guys that have typically given him problems. But, the Stephon Diggses, the Antonio Browns, those are the types of guys that AJ has had a lot more success against over the years. And no offense to Mike Hughes and D. Alford, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't want them on Malik Neighbors at all. Not one bit. So
no shade.
I'm curious to see if Jimmy Lake is going to have that aggressive mindset that we have praised him for. And when he has gone away from that mindset, we have criticized him for throughout the season and even on Monday night. And so I think that is part of it. If you're basically like, look, we're going to minimize how many times Malik and his speed, his game-breaking speed will get on our quote-unquote lesser corners and try to maximize, AJ's matchups against him. But obviously, if AJ gives up one or two explosive plays, which we know he has done, that could be a significant factor in determining the outcome of this game if it's, closer than people would ideally want. But what are your thoughts on that potential AJ versus Malik Neighbors matchup, as well as there other potential players and units or coaches that you think could be X factors on Sunday?
You know what, man? Malik Neighbors is 99 yards away from 1,000. Can you hold off on that for one more week? And I feel like AJ Terrell is the right man for the job, right? Because, that's why you get paid that type of money. And we've seen, how he did the job that he did on Justin Jefferson. Now A lot of people make an argument saying, well, shoot, why wasn't he on the whole game? Offense coordinators tend to get a little creative and move him around, put him in the slot. So it's kind of hard to kind of do that whole follow thing 100% of the time. But I do believe that whenever he's lined up on the outside, 24 should be in front of him. I feel like I feel comfortable saying that. And I think that, if that's the case, I feel like there'll be a space where he might still need a few more yards to get that 1,000 yards, because you don't want a guy like that going off. Like, it's like, what do I always say? Going into the games, there are certain guys, certain teams have weapons, and certain teams have a weapon. They have a weapon. You can't let a weapon beat you. Minnesota had multiple weapons, and all of them went off. You know what I'm saying? But if you have one weapon, you can't let them beat you. Like, y'all did an excellent job on Brock Bowers. Basically took him out of the game. He was a non-factor. So, I mean, I know it's a bigger ask to ask for Malik Neighbors, but hear me. Like, 3 or 4 catches for 67 yards, man, that's a win. Even if you got a touchdown, that's still a win. That's fine. That's one big play. You messed up. All right, coach, we make up for it, and then that's it for the rest of the game. So that's the type of thing I'm asking. Like, I feel like, AJ Terrell is the guy for the job. As far as a X factor, man, I'm gonna go back with Darnell Mooney, because, like, putting that goose egg up, I know that dude was upset. And he's the type of guy that he's a smart guy. Like, he and Kirk talk a lot. And, Darnell not only is receptive as to what Kirk expects from him, but Darnell can vocalize and verbalize what he expects from him as a quarterback as well. Like, hey, man, here's where I'm going to be on this particular route. I understand what Zach is trying to do when this particular play is being called. So I feel Darnell has the opportunity to be able to do that, because if they have success running the football, they're going to start bringing guys down in the box. And once they start bringing guys down in the box, there's only certain coverages you can play, and that's man. And I've deemed Darnell Mooney the man beater on this team. Drake can do it, but I feel like Darnell is way more explosive, as far as really being able to take the top off of defense. So I feel, this is the game for Darnell to bounce back for sure, after what we saw last week.
Yeah. I agree. So it's gonna be an interesting game to watch. So many unknowns at this point, especially with the quarterback position with Michael Penix. We will see sort of what we are talking about on Locked On Sports Atlanta in the postcast. Any sort of parting thoughts, Jarvis, before we duck out of here?
Yeah, man. I just want to give a shout out to Raheem Morris for dropping a pair and making these 2 important decisions. Like the direction of your franchise. If Kirk is just, everybody sees that he's been playing awful, and you decide, you know what, this is unacceptable. There's something going on with this dude. He may be getting old. He lost his confidence, or all of the above. I have to make a decision that's best for the team. And that's always been my point, man. I ain't trying to throw no shade at Kirk. I like Kirk. I like the man. I talked to him myself. The man is the outstanding person. However, you gotta be able to. We only know each other based off of how we meet. Like, how we met, I talk about ball, you play ball. You know what I'm saying? That's how we met, bro. So, as long as you keep playing ball and doing your thing, I ain't gonna have nothing to say. But I'm glad that Raheem made that decision, and also the Young Way Cool thing, because I don't like the whole, oh yeah, if it's inside a 50-yard field goal, we'll go. If it's outside, we're not gonna necessarily do that. I don't like the whole secret restriction stuff. So yeah, I'm glad they made their decision, and Cool is gonna be a guy that they're gonna have to look at, come next year and see if they want to bring him back. And if they do, as long as he's healthy, I'm totally fine with it. But yeah, shout out to you, Rob.
Okay, there you go. Well, we'll see what's what on Sunday. Check out Locked On Sports Atlanta for that post.
Hey, bro, you better be you better hope MPX does his thing on Sunday. That's all I gotta say.
There you go. So we will be talking about it on Sunday. Postcast, Locked On Sports Atlanta. Check out the Atlanta football party, of course, twice a week, Monday, Thursdays as well, to get you guys geared up. That's going to do it for us here on Locked On Falcons. Continue to make us your first listen. Of course, we'll be back with a rapid reaction. I got to come up with, the Kirk Cousins chaos meter is gone. So I don't know what I got to come up with. I got to come up with something with MPX when it comes to that. But we'll figure out something on Sunday. So check out Locked On Falcons as well. And of course, check out the other 30 NFL teams, or 31, I guess you could say, with the Giants included, that are, going to be playing this weekend, because Locked On NFL has you covered. 2 shows daily. Madman Tyler Rowland. Tony's not, well, sometimes Tony's a madman.
Tony can be a little mad sometimes.
But, Tony gives you that real barbershop talk and whatnot. So check out Locked On NFL. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.